One night in March 2006, Brian Shaffer, a medical student at The Ohio State University, was enjoying an evening with friends celebrating the start of spring break. The night began as a quiet one, just a night out at a popular bar called the Ugly Tuna Saloon. But what began as an ordinary evening ended in a strange story that remains unsolved to this day. Brian disappeared, seemingly vanishing into thin air. It's important to note that Brian had no mental or legal problems, and there were no indications that he wanted to disappear. So what happened?
Are seen leaving, but he is not seen on any of the cameras.
There's just all these unanswered questions.
Brian was an ambitious 25-year-old medical student looking forward to a successful future. But he wasn't living his happiest life. His mother had died a few months earlier, and he was still grieving, even though he tried to show his friends otherwise. Analysis. The emotional strain of losing a parent can have a subtle effect. But was this grief enough to drive Brian to disappear? Or was there something deeper?
She died. That did rock Brian's world.
That night, Brian entered the bar with his friend Clint, left together, and later returned. At 1:55 a.m., Brian was captured on surveillance footage entering the bar. He was never seen again. Cameras never recorded him leaving. How could someone leave a building monitored by cameras undetected? Was there a secret exit, or were the recordings tampered with, or did he never leave at all?
We went to the Ugly Tuna Saloon. They had a few drinks. There was a band playing. His friends actually called Brian, tried to find him, went and looked in the bathroom. The following day, his girlfriend was getting concerned because she was unable to reach Brian. Brandy told me it was around 7 p.m. when he got the call that something was wrong, that no one was able to reach Brian, that he had not slept in his bed. Brian was reported missing that Sunday evening.
The police searched the entire area, used sniffer dogs, and reviewed every camera in the building and neighboring buildings, to no avail. There was no evidence that he had left, or even that he had suffered any harm inside the bar. The absence of any trace of Brian is unusual. Even if he had tried to hide, there should have been a trace. This leads us to darker hypotheses.
I'm retired Sergeant John Hurst from the Columbus Police Department. I was working prior to my retirement, the Brian Shaffer case. Talked to the family on Monday. We found out that Brian was with his friend Clint Florence from the university, and they had went to the Ugly Tuna Saloon. We were able to watch them from the garage all the way into the Ugly Tuna Saloon, where we had them going up the escalator and back into the bar.
Brian looked very happy. He was talking, smiling.
The last thing we did see that evening of Brian was he was out on the upper level.
A couple security guards are standing there, and then Brian is talking with two females.
We seen Brian go back off the camera and were unable to locate him leaving the building. We went through the Ugly Tuna Saloon bar, checking for any type of exit or areas where somebody may have been able to slip out.
His friend Clint was the last person to see Brian, but he refused to take a lie detector test and refused to fully cooperate with the police. Suspicions also arose about Brian's relationship with his girlfriend, who was waiting for him that weekend. But he never showed up. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. Why didn't his friend cooperate? Is it possible that he knew something and didn't say it?
We did find out that Clint and Brian had a verbal altercation inside the bar. We did try to get Clint Florence to come in and do a polygraph, but he contacted an attorney and decided to not take a polygraph. The question comes up, why did he not take the polygraph? But some people just don't trust polygraphs.
Various hypotheses have been proposed: voluntary escape, fall at a construction site, murder. There's no evidence to support any of them. Neither his bank card nor his phone have been used since the day he disappeared. It's as if time stood. Still, at that moment, the theory of forced disappearance, or even premeditated murder, cannot be dismissed, especially in an area frequented by hundreds of people every night. Years passed and everything changed. Brian's father died without knowing his son's fate, but his brother and his friends are still searching, hoping, and waiting for any new clues.
Brian's got a brother, he's got a sister-in-law, he's got a nephew, He's got friends that still love him and still write to me about him.
The family didn't give us any indication that he was depressed or upset to the point that he would do something.
I have to hope Brian's alive. The only other option is not a good option. He was on the path to become a doctor, but many have speculated that possibly that wasn't his dream, but that was his parents' dream.
We've had reports that he wanted to go to Florida and be a beach bum.
Brian wrote on MySpace that he would rather be on a beach smoking with Bob Marley. So was that Brian being funny, or was that truly what Brian Shaffer wanted?
If he did take off, why? And, if it was suicide, why?
Randy never even considered the thought that maybe Brian had walked away. He felt that Brian had met with foul play.
If he did succumb to some type of foul play, somebody out there knows something. I always get the question asked, what do I think happened? Is Brian alive? Is he still out there? My answer to that is there's nothing to indicate that he's not out there.
Brian was 6'2". He was approximately 165 to 170. He had hazel eyes, and he does have a dot on the left iris that would be noticeable. He also has a Pearl Jam stickman tattoo on the right bicep.
My hope is someday that we will have all the answers and give some closure to the family.
I ask that anyone that has factual information to share that. It's been long enough.
Brian Shaffer may be alive somewhere, or he may have been the victim of a crime buried deep in the silence. Either way, there are still those who ask, where is Brian Shaffer?